It hurts when you have to suffer for something you didn't do.
Susan.
Mellon, I believe, based on what I've read, that she's innocent. And for that reason, I think the criminal justice system failed. The case is overturned, and as is known, the case is set.
In 1997, Susan Mellon found herself in a desperate situation after she was arrested by the police for the murder of her ex-boyfriend, Richard Daley. She was with her daughter Jessica at the time, and they were on their way to buy food at Mickey D when she was suddenly arrested by the police. During the investigation, Susan repeatedly insisted on her innocence to the detectives, but they were already convinced. Even though there was no clear evidence that she was guilty, she was threatened and pressured that night and was eventually charged with first-degree murder. During the court trial, several witnesses presented by the prosecutors claimed that she was responsible for the crime, so she was found guilty. Because of this, she was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Like other innocent people who are imprisoned, Susan was left to suffer in prison for a long time. Her only hope was her family, who never stopped trying to prove her innocence. Her release began when the main witness in the case, June Patty, was identified as a pathological liar, addicted to illegal substances, and had a history of falsifying information in court. According to others, she may have also been influenced by detectives to go along with any statement given to her, while others say she was just a person with serious problems. In addition, there was further forensic evidence that showed Richard Daley had been dead for 3 hours before the alleged time of the crime that Susan was accused of. Daley was assaulted until he was killed in an alley near his house, and that place was far from the location where Susan was arrested. Looking back, it's surprising how she was found guilty by the judge in the first trial, but upon review of the case, she was blessed. Judge Mark Arnold overturned the verdict against her and released her. Upon her release, Susan felt immense joy and relief to be out of prison. Her smile and happiness were evident as she reunited with her family. She even said that even while she was in prison, she felt free inside. Eventually, Susan was given $1 million in compensation from the state, and now she is able to live comfortably with her family. Kirsten Lobato. This is the happy moment when Kirsten Lobato walks down the street as a free woman after being wrongfully convicted and imprisoned for 16 years. In May 2001, Kirsten Lobato, who was 18 years old at the time, began telling some of her friends in Las Vegas and in her hometown of Panaca that a large black man had tried to harm her at a hotel in Las Vegas. On July 8, 2001, the lifeless and mutilated body of a black man named Duran Bailey was found. More than 10 days later, Lobato was charged after one of her friends reported her story to the police about the alleged incident that supposedly happened 2 months before the crime. But it's clear that Lobato's story was fabricated by another man, and she had nothing to do with Bailey's death. During the investigation, Lobato admitted that she attacked a black man in his private parts, and the police used this as if it was a confession to the killing of Mr. Bailey. This caused a lot of confusion because there were 2 different black men involved in the story. Aside from that, Lobato's house was almost 200 meters away from the crime scene, and he had an alibi. His family said he was at home the whole day. There was no physical evidence linking him to the crime. But even so, Nang was found guilty of first-degree murder by the jury. He was sentenced to 40 to 100 years in prison. But the story didn't end there. After his first appeal failed, his lawyers found DNA evidence, footprints, and pubic hair belonging to another person at the crime scene. Because of this, a third trial became possible in 2017. What happened was very questionable. It's like the state of Nevada didn't want to let him go. The judge who handled the first 2 trials was forced to step down due to alleged bias and issuing a harsh ruling in a case that lacked sufficient basis. Finally, in January 2018, a new judge came in and overturned his conviction. Lobato was released. He said, "I was extremely overwhelmed, happy, and deeply grateful to everyone who believed in me. I just wanted a sibling. He said this while emotional and happy about his release. And, as seen, he was extremely happy to get out of prison. But the years he lost are still nothing compared to the next story of another wrongly convicted person. Ricky Jackson. This is what Ricky Jackson said after he was released as a free man, after serving 39 years for a crime he did not commit. On May 19, 1975, businessman Harold Franks was killed outside a grocery store in Cleveland, Ohio. According to witnesses, there were 3 African Americans involved in the crime. 2 men attacked him and poured acid on his face, while the third shot him twice with a gun. They also shot the victim's wife and escaped in a green car carrying Harold Franks' briefcase of money. The police arrived and gathered witnesses for the investigation. One of them was Karen Smith, who said that 3 African Americans committed the crime, but she did not know them. Another witness, a 12-year-old boy named Eddie Vernon, said that Ricky Jackson, Ronnie Bridgman, and Wiley Bridgman committed the crime. Although their descriptions matched the suspects, there was no evidence. There was no murder weapon, no proof that they had a green car, and no DNA match or any physical evidence. But because of the testimony of a 12-year-old child, the court convicted Ricky, Ronnie, and Wiley. Ricky was even considered the gunman and was sentenced in 2003. Later, Ronnie Bridgman was released on parole in 2002, and his brother was also released in 2003. But he struggled because his mental health worsened while he was in prison. The major breakthrough in the case came when the 12-year-old child witness, who is now 50 years old, recanted his testimony. In 2013, Vernon said that a friend just gave him the 3 names that he passed on to the police, and he also admitted that he claimed to be an eyewitness. But in reality, he didn't see anything, and he wasn't near the crime scene. He didn't actually see any of the men or witness the incident. The following year, he officially recanted his previous statement. Because of this, the process for Ricky Jackson's release began. The following year, he was released and his conviction was overturned. After all those years in prison, he was given $1 million by the state of Ohio in 2015. In 2016, he received an additional $2.65 million from the Court of Claims based on lost income. In the end, the city of Cleveland also paid $18 million to be divided among the 3 men, in exchange for them dropping the cases they filed against the city. Ricky is now one of those who spent the longest time in prison before being exonerated in the U.S., but the question is, can money really make up for all the pain and the years lost? Most likely not. Raymond Toller, May 24, 1981. 2 cousins, a man and a woman, were forced to enter a dense forest in the Rocky River Reservation in Cleveland, Ohio. The young boy was injured while the young girl was treated badly. 3 weeks later, Raymond Toller, 24 years old, was identified because he allegedly matched the description of the suspect when he was stopped by a park ranger during a routine traffic stop. Raymond is a musician in Ohio, but he also earns money from temporary jobs. He lives with his mother and sister. After the interrogation, he was found guilty of misconduct with a woman, kidnapping, and felonious assault for both victims. He was sentenced to 12 years to life imprisonment for misconduct with a woman, along with additional consecutive sentences of 7 to 25 years and 5 to 25 years. This means he will be imprisoned for almost his entire life. In 2004, there was a sudden hope when the judge allowed DNA testing in his case to prove his innocence. This rarely happens, so it was a big break in the case. But despite this, years passed without any clear results. He fell into deep depression because he felt that he would be imprisoned for life. November 2008, after 4 years of waiting, the DNA test results came out. The semen found on the underwear of one of the victims showed partial genetic profiles of 2 men, and neither of them was Raymond Toller. But even though it was clear that he didn't match, the prosecutors refused to accept the result right away. They said that this was not enough evidence to overturn the case. But for the court, this raised big questions about how he was found guilty back then. And even though the new evidence was clear, it still took 2 more years before the process finally resulted in his exoneration. On May 5, 2010, all charges against Haller were dropped, and he was also expected to receive around $1 million as compensation for the years he spent in prison. Daniel Villas.
Verdict Form B. We, the jury, find the defendant Daniel Villas not guilty of.
On April 10, 1993, a tragic incident occurred. A group of teenagers was on their way home from a high school party when they were suddenly shot at by an unknown suspect. Two of them, Lazo and Bobby England, were seriously injured. Unfortunately, Bobby did not survive, while Arando was able to survive after being helped by people from a nearby house and brought to the hospital. Daniel Villas had nothing to do with this crime, but like in many cases in the 1990s, the police were quick to point fingers at just anyone, and Villas became the target. He was arrested at just 16 years old. According to him, he was forced to confess to the crime even though he didn't do it. He didn't have a lawyer at that time, and his parents weren't there to defend him either. Under police pressure, he was forced to make a confession. Even though he retracted it, the prosecution still used his earlier statement against him. In 1994, he had his first trial, but the jury couldn't reach a decision, so it ended in a mistrial. The following year, the case was retried, and this time he was found guilty of capital murder. He was sentenced to life imprisonment. But in 2013, the court discovered that there was a mistake in the case. The guilty verdict was overturned and Daniel Villas was released. A year later, he got married and had 2 children. But the fight was not over yet because a third trial was conducted. If he is proven guilty again, he could be taken away from his family for good. In the third trial, there was no DNA evidence, no forensic proof, and no weapon that could link him to the crime. Because of this, the jury decided that he was not guilty. Daniel Villas cried tears of relief after being declared innocent, after spending 18 years in prison for a crime he did not commit. Michael Hanline behind bars.
I always hoped this day would come, but I can't believe it's actually happening.
In November 1978, a biker and Michael Hanline's close friend, J.T. Magari, suddenly disappeared in Ventura County, California. Just a few days later, JT's body was found. He was attacked multiple times and left on the side of a service road, 28 miles away from his home. JT and Michael were friends before the incident, but as the investigation went on, Hanline became the main suspect and was eventually arrested. He was convicted of killing him. Hanline continued to insist on his innocence the entire time despite his conviction. In 1999, a nonprofit organization called the California Innocence Project began reviewing hundreds of cases. After 20 years in prison, Michael reached out to them and they decided to look into his case. After several years of investigation, the CIP discovered police reports that had been hidden before Michael's trial. These reports contained information pointing to other people, not Michael, as possibly involved in the crime. Even more shocking, these documents also revealed that the prosecution's key witnesses were unreliable. It turns out that a defense attorney and known drug dealer named Bruce Robertson, who had also previously represented some of the prosecution's witnesses in other cases, allegedly tried to divert the investigation away from his clients and point it towards Michael. According to reports, Robertson allegedly intimidated and pressured witnesses to testify against Michael Hanline. Even though he is now dead, some say he was the one who manipulated the entire case to have Hanline imprisoned. Because of this, it was expected that he would be released immediately, but a complication arose. A judge in the district court denied his release because most of the witnesses are also dead, making it difficult to verify the statements against Robertson. Nevertheless, the CIP did not stop and continued their investigation, including DNA testing, which eventually became the key to his release. On November 24, 2014, Michael Hanline was finally released after 36 years in prison. When he left the court, he looked up at the sky and walked out as a free man. The first thing he did, he went straight to McDonald's for a burger. His first real meal as a free man after more than 3 decades. Hubert Nathan Myers and Clifford Williams. On May 2, 1976, an attack took place on Morgan Street in Jacksonville, Florida. While Jeanette Williams and her partner Nina Marshall were sleeping, gunshots suddenly rang out in their room. Jeanette was instantly killed due to multiple gunshot wounds. Nina was also attacked multiple times but managed to get out of the house and reach the hospital for treatment. Neighbors and guests at a nearby birthday party heard gunshots and commotion. They went outside to see what happened. Two of the people there were Nathan Myers and Clifford Williams. Despite their alibi that they were at the party when the attack happened, which was confirmed by more than 40 to 45 people, both of them were still arrested by the police just a few hours after the incident. On July 22, 1976, the state of Florida tried Nathan and Clifford together for first-degree murder and attempted murder. Nina, who survived, identified Nathan and Clifford in court as the attackers. But even so, the evidence was still lacking, especially since their alibi was strong. Because of this, the first trial ended in a mistrial. After a few months, the second joint trial was conducted. But in this trial, a lot of important evidence was not presented to the jury, including physical evidence from the crime scene that could have changed the outcome. Evidence contradicting Nina's testimony was also not presented. No alibi witnesses were called to prove that they were really at the party. It seemed like the verdict was already decided from the start, and in just 2 days, they were found guilty and given a life sentence. In the following years, they appealed and continued to insist on their innocence while in prison. Eventually, new evidence emerged. It was discovered that all the bullets fired in the crime came from only one weapon, which means there was only one shooter, not two. There was another, even more important piece of evidence. The bullets' trajectory showed they were fired from outside the house, not from inside as Nina claimed. Because of this, the whole case fell apart. After 42 years in prison, they were finally exonerated. Nathan was only 18 years old when he was imprisoned, and he was 60 when he was released. Clifford, on the other hand, was 38 when he was imprisoned, and 76 when he got out. They both lost their entire lives. And the same thing happened in many other cases we've discussed. People who were implicated in crimes they had nothing to do with. One wrong witness, one wrong investigation, one wrong decision. And a whole life is the price. In the end, you can't help but ask, how often is justice really served? Because, as they say, justice is a decision. Thank you.